Winx Club has a lot of really interesting characters, many of whom I feel are underutilized. So in this video, I would like to talk about some characters I would like to see more in the reboot, and maybe even some characters I'd like to see less of. So Winx Club has loads of these really interesting characters that sort of end up being one-offs to the series, but it would actually make sense for them to be more of them in the series, I feel. And a lot of that, I feel, comes from the fact that a lot of the Winx Club plot seems to have been made as Winx Club was being made. So it wasn't just planned out from season 1 to season 8 and nothing was changed. A lot of the stuff was changed while writing. Even in season 1, you see these little glimpses of the writing ideas that they had but then changed. And even later on, I think they originally planned for the series to span only for 3 seasons, and then they made more. And this means that there are some characters who turn up, who are a cool idea, who are a cool concept to have in the series, but that logically should have been in the series from the start or from the earlier seasons as well. And I feel that now when Winx Club is getting a reboot, they are actually getting a really good opportunity to tell a coherent story and use some of these characters and give them a more fuller character story and make sense of them better. So today I would like to talk about some characters I like to see more of, and maybe a couple of characters I'd like to see less of, even though I love loads and loads of Winx Club characters and there are only so many of the ones that I really don't like. But before we do, this video is actually sponsored. If you like collecting fan merchandise like I do, then the Estonian anime shop Pandajama is a great place for you to head to. They ship their wonderful merchandise to Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. And they're also thinking of expanding their shipping options to Finland. So if you're in Finland, make sure to look out for that. If you like figures, if you like anime merchandise, and even like just smaller stuff like pins and mouse pads, then check out their website and I think you will find something there that you'll enjoy. And if you use my creator code HILDIAVIS, which you can see on the screen and also copy from the description, you get 5% off your order, and you can also support my channel by using the creator code. Thank you so much to Bandai for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to talking about these Winx Club characters. I think one sort of big realm of characters we're going to be talking about in this video are childhood friends of the Winx. And I would like to start with Selina and Andy, because these are Bloom's sort of childhood friends. Andy is her ex-boyfriend, but they're sort of Bloom's childhood people. And I would really like to see more of them. I think Selina was a really interesting concept, and I love it that Bloom actually for once seemed to have a life outside of Alfea and like before Alfea, because it really makes no sense that she has like so little of a life on Earth as it originally seems. And I like the concept of Selina a lot. I like the idea of Bloom having a childhood friend, but it sort of came out of nowhere in season 6. And Selina was clearly a character who should have been there from the start, but was pasted there in the middle because they didn't really think of including her in the start. So I would hope that if they're gonna, I don't know if they're gonna go again with the whole Legendarium plotline, because I feel like that part of season 6 really isn't that strong, even though that's like half of the plot. But I feel like season 6 in general isn't like the strongest season, so I wouldn't necessarily want them to remake the season. But I think Selina as a character, and we're mainly talking about separate characters here that I would like to see more of. I think Selina as a character is a really interesting character who adds dimension to Bloom. And I think Bloom having any sort of childhood friends makes sense. In the first seasons, really the only character we see Bloom interacting with is Mitzi, and she doesn't get along with Mitzi. And I sort of understand why Mitzi is necessary. It is there to show that Bloom isn't really fitting in and Bloom really isn't enjoying her life on Earth. And that's why it sort of makes sense that she is willing to leave Earth behind quite easily like if you compare her to Roxy later, her reaction feels much more realistic. So Bloom's reaction feels natural to someone who wants to leave Earth behind because she has nothing there. She's sort of an isekai character in modern anime, one of those who like work and then they're reborn, and a lot of them never like feel the urge to return to Earth because they're so much happier in the new isekai world. And Bloom is somewhat similar, but I still like the idea of Bloom having a childhood friend, Bloom having and maybe Selina isn't even in the picture at that point. I mean, Selina doesn't have to be in the picture at that point, and if she isn't in the picture anymore, then that wouldn't like drastically change Bloom's character in the sense that Bloom might be wanting to stay on Earth. So maybe she and Selina have sort of drifted apart or something, but it would be cool to have Selina be there from the start. I'm not sure if they're gonna use Selina again because they might just scrap that entire storyline, but I think Selina is a cool addition on her own. And similarly to Selina, I think Andy is the sort of cool addition. It would actually be interesting to know why Bloom and Andy broke off. I could be mistaken because I haven't watched the newer seasons so many times, but I feel like they never really established why they broke up. It would also be interesting if Bloom like had to break up with her boyfriend because she's going to another dimension, and then she finds Sky and stuff. Although maybe that creates too much drama, but either way, I would like Andy to be there as well because that just creates more of a life for Bloom. And speaking of characters who I don't necessarily want to see in the reboot, Mitzi. Mitzi is already in trailer, so I think we're not gonna escape her. But I feel like Mitzi's trope of sort of being like a classical mean girl, bully, like a little bit of a rich girl, it's boring, it's overdone, but I mean, it does well establish the fact that Bloom doesn't like her life on Earth because she has these bullies. She's not really fitting in. So I think we're gonna see Mitzi regardless, but like personally for me, I could do without Mitzi. I think she's one of the more flatter characters. I think there's never been anything about her that's been like interesting about her that made me feel like I want to explore her or that she's underexplored. But I guess we will see what they do with her, and maybe they'll do something important, and maybe they'll do something interesting with her. Speaking of people from the girls' original planets, let's just cover these. Do you guys remember Nova? Stella's friend Nova. Do you remember her? And she's another character who I would like to see, especially because, and this is something I would like to see expanded on in general, especially because Stella went to an Alfea originally a whole year before Bloom did, and the whole year before all of the other Winx girls did. It does seem like in the reboot they sort of started at the same time, including Aisha, and that Bloom is the only one who's just like joining in later, and the other fairies have already been there. But considering in the original story, Estella had a whole year in Alfea where she studied there and then was like expelled, then I would have always liked to have seen something of that year. Like, who was she friends with? Did she not have any friends? If she was like a complete outcast, that would have been interesting to explore as well. But regardless, Nova is someone from Stella's original home planet, a friend of hers, and I always find these friends to be really interesting to see. And Nova had a great character design as well. I love the way Nova looks. So it would be interesting if Stella had this earlier friend from her planet integrated into the show as well. And she doesn't have to be there a lot. She doesn't have to be there constantly, but like a little snippets of her sometimes being there, like the Winx having a life outside of the Winx Club would be so good and so cool. And maybe like sometimes they need a little bit of exposition or a little bit of gossip. Like I think Nova in the original series tells Stella some rumors and stuff, and that's why she's there. But they only use her for that instance once, and then it's like she doesn't ever exist again. And I think it would be interesting if they regularly used these minor characters again and again. And it would also add to the characters of the Winx characters themselves. Another character who I feel like we never got any sort of closure on that we needed more of is Aisha's childhood friend Anne, who turns up a lot in her season 2 flashbacks and is the person who taught her to dance and love dance. And Anne is this really important character in Aisha's life, and she never thinks of her again after season 2. And that's so weird because like Aisha gets engaged and stuff, and there's a lot of deep stuff happening in her life that I feel like she would want to reconnect with that friend. And I feel like it would have been really nice closure to have her at one point reconnect with her friend and show her, hey, look how far I have come. I have overcome all of my fears. I am now someone who like dances without fear and who is fearless and who just isn't like standing there and doing what they're told, and that's because of you, and I'm so grateful for you, and also just to like reconnect with that old friendship. So it does say in the Winx Club wiki that she was forced to separate from her friend. She is from Eros and currently lives there. So at least they did in some way like explain and establish why she wasn't there, but Anne doesn't seem to be dead. So it would have been nice if they had rekindled their friendship at one point, if they had just by like happenstance maybe happened to get together and see each other again after so many years and reconnect. So I feel like I don't know what they're gonna do with Aisha's storyline, because a lot of Aisha's storyline is has to do with the fact that she joins the club while it's already like formed and they're a friendship group, and then she feels very left out, and that's how we find out about her and her fears of like being left alone, and her worries about not fitting in, and that's what makes her character really interesting. So I don't know what they're gonna do with Aisha without that aspect being there. I'm not necessarily against Aisha being in a Winx Club from the start, because she is sort of by now this iconic part of the club, and it would almost feel weird to leave her out from the start. But again, this has to do so much with her origin story that I feel like she will be a different person if she doesn't join Winx Club halfway through, and she won't go through the same things and the same journey, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if they do make her go through a similar journey and make her have these flashbacks and make her speak about her past, which I would like them to do for every single fairy. I would like every fairy to have a good established backstory that they will uncover at one point. Then I would like to see more of Anne, and I would like to see them reunited as well. Then we have Galatea, who again is there in season 3 for Musa briefly to save her life, and then she's never there again. Galatea isn't like the most interesting character to begin with, but she's the princess of Musa's realm, and I would like to have her be at least established properly before, so that Musa can save someone who actually like matters to her, because she is established in season 3, but she could have been established like far before. Okay, apparently Galatea also shows up in season 8. I didn't remember that, but I'm looking at Winx Wiki, and there is like a season 8 style version of her as well. And apparently she's like very briefly in season 5 as well, which is cool. But you know, still would be cool if she was like there from the start. I feel like they've done a pretty good job at reintroducing Miele in the show a couple of times, but of course I would like to see Flora's sister be there as well. I think it's cute Flora has a sister. I think it's interesting for like at least one of the Winx fairies to have a sister, because most of them seem to be only children. So I hope that they keep Miele in there as well. But now that we've discussed all of the childhood friends that I'd like to see more of, or that I'd like to be at least established in this show, we can discuss some other characters. And some other characters I'd like to see expanded on are the other fairies in the fair school, Alfea, particularly Amaryl. I feel like Amaryl in the earlier seasons had a sort of rivalry with Stella, and she was kind of the mean girl, but also more interesting than Mitzi in that they had like a genuine rivalry. She seemed to want to be like a better student, which I think is more interesting, or like a better fairy. And she kind of she's kind of feisty and interesting. So it really is kind of sad for me that they've completely dropped Amaryl's character to the point that I think in season 4 she goes to get Stella's autograph, even though like she doesn't like Stella in the earlier seasons. And like maybe she's changed her mind about Stella, but we never established that at all. Like she tries to straight up murder Stella in one of the episodes, and then a couple of series later she goes to get her autograph. Okay, I double checked the episode and she actually goes to get Bloom's autograph, which I guess makes a little bit more sense, but also not really because they studied together. Why didn't Amaryl graduate? So I would actually like if they established the characters of the other fairies better, because they clearly have created characters for them. There are official names for a lot of the fairies that don't even have speaking roles. They have official powers. If you look at the Winx Club Instagram, they have some posts there where they introduce the Alfea fairies. So it would be interesting if they gave these people more of a personality, and they could be background characters, but also have a personality. There's the girl who's in the 4 Kids style wedding was named Pia, with dark curly hair, whose design I really like. So it would be interesting to see more of the Alfea fairies. Also similarly, and I don't think this is necessarily going to happen, but I would also would have liked to see more of some of the teachers explored. Particularly, I like Professor Palladium. I think he's so cute. I think he's so cute and fun, and also the proper Professor Avalon, the real one. If they're going to bring back the whole storyline with Professor Avalon and Darkbloom, which I seriously doubt because that is such a dark storyline. I think they're gonna scrap that. I would be surprised if they have the goal to do it again because it's such a dark storyline. But I'll be pleasantly surprised if they do it again. I think Faragonda gets explored. I think the whole Company of Light storyline is interesting. So if you got some flashbacks to that, I would actually maybe even like a flashback episode for the Winx, but not in what happened in the previous seasons, but like their childhood friends and stuff, so that we could establish something fun like that. It would be interesting. And yeah, the teachers I feel like also have really interesting characters, and it would be interesting to see them. As I have rewatched Winx Club, I felt that it's also really interesting to watch their magic classes and how the logic of the magical world works. That isn't a character necessarily, but that is something I would like to see more of as well. Then of course we have Diaspro. I would like them to do something proper with Diaspro. I feel like they also lost the plot with her a little bit. Her character made sense until about season 3, and then they just like repeat used her as a repeat villain. But wasn't she like banished from Arachne or something? Like after her crimes in season 3, you sort of expect never to see her again, and she really goes off into the deep end. It would be interesting to see her not go off into the deep end, because Sky treated her badly. She doesn't necessarily have to hate Bloom for it. And I think it would be really fun and innovative and new to see her not hate Bloom, but to turn her anger on Sky, and not necessarily try to steal Sky. I'd really like them to give Diaspro a coherent, thought out storyline that makes sense. Her characterization, I wouldn't even mind her, like, I wouldn't absolutely mind her coming to her senses, realizing that, Sky loves Bloom and he treated her badly, but that's no reason to be mad at Bloom. Then again, Bloom did try to murder her in season 1, so that is a reason to be mad at Bloom. But maybe Bloom doesn't act so aggressively in this version. So yeah, I'd like to see a more coherent storyline for Diaspro, where they don't just end up reusing her over and over again randomly, and they rather give her like a character arc where she either finds peace with herself, which honestly would be really nice if you find peace with the entire deal with Sky and Bloom. And yeah, it would be really amazing if because she does feel like she has the makings of a redeemable villain. because she's clearly very angry at the situation, and understandably, as Bloom tries to murder her. Yeah, it would be interesting to see her sort of coming to her senses, for instance. Or I guess if she has to go off the deep end, then she can go off the deep end, but we can't just like basically banish her from the kingdom and then have her be unleashed a couple of seasons later. I know that's Nickelodeon's fault, but I still want like a coherent, interesting storyline for Diaspro, because I feel like she's one of those characters who deserves it. Then let's talk about Mirta and Lucy. I think Mirta and Lucy were also really, really interesting characters in the first seasons, and they established them well. And Mirta's character specifically, coming from a witch background and then turning into a fairy, is so interesting and adds so much dimension to the world of magic, and it also adds so many possibilities that witches can become fairies. That's really, really interesting. And I feel like up until season 3, they do a really, really good job. And they do give Mirta some closure, like a little bit. Like we see her becoming a fairy, but we also see her see this like possessed Lucy and feel bad about it. And then we never really find out, we never get like a proper closure. And maybe that sort of open-endedness is nice, but I would like to see more of Mirta as well. I really hope that Mirta and Lucy make a comeback in the series, because I think they're important and fun characters. I would also like to see, I'm realizing as I'm making this video, more of Stella's mother. We saw a lot of Stella's father, but never really Stella's mother, so that would be interesting as well. And then I guess finally we should talk about Roxy. Roxy, I feel you can go two directions with Roxy. Either you can scrap the whole Earth Fairy storyline and not have Roxy there at all, or you're supposed to have Roxy there more. I feel like we need to go one way or the other, because Roxy is so heavily in season 4, and then she's so, again, discarded in the later seasons. She is there, but given that she's practically a member of the Winx Club in season 4, it's so jarring to basically almost not have her in the animal season, like in the fairy animal season. Like she is there, and they don't completely not acknowledge her existence, but she could be there way more. So I hope that they either use Roxy to the fullest or don't use her at all. Just go with one or the other. Same with Pixies. If we're gonna keep the Pixies, if we're gonna have the Pixies storyline, then they need to be there from start to finish. And I would really like them not to have a new, cute, fluffy sidekick thing every season. I think that's annoying, especially considering that for the Pixies, they tried to give each of them some character. Like Toon was a very interesting character who sort of inspired or like tried to get Musa to become more ladylike, because Musa is a very tomboyish fairy. Juxtaposition between Musa and Toon was interesting. So yeah, they actually gave the Pixies some characters. So if they would like to keep the original Pixies, then that would be interesting as well. But I would like to see them have the Pixies then and keep the Pixies, instead of having like Selkies and fairy animals and these new things every season. Obviously we're getting Kiko, right? We can't even like a Phantom not having Kiko. I think I've discussed all of the important characters I'd definitely like to see more of in the seasons. I think it would be interesting to see more of some of the backgrounds of the specialists maybe as well. But let me know which characters you would like to see more of. I also considered talking about Tekna. I feel like Tekna, out of all of the Winx girls in the main series, has the least amount of background. They try to give her some background in the later seasons. In like season 7 is the first time I think we see her parents, but by season 7 the writing is so bad that nothing really comes of it. So I hope Tekna gets some awesome background as well. I hope all the Winx fairies do. And let me know who you would like to see more of in the reboot. Do you think they're gonna use the same background characters? Or are they gonna have Winx fairies live in basically a whole another new world? Are Mirta and Lucy not gonna be there at all? or any of the fairies we know from Alfea. I hope that they will be there. If you have enjoyed this one, then make sure to subscribe and leave a like and all of that stuff. And check out some of my other stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!